Welcome to Regulated and Relational, a bi-monthly podcast brought to you by the Attachment and Trauma Network. Today, Julie and Ginger unpack the science, healing power, and everyday possibilities of play. Play isn't just for fun, it's essential. Let's learn more.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Regulated and Relational, our podcast produced by the Attachment and Trauma Network. I'm Ginger Healy.
And I'm Julie Beam.
And we're excited to share with you from both our personal experiences and our professional knowledge what it truly means to be attachment-focused, trauma-informed, and how we can help children impacted by early childhood trauma. And today we're diving into a fun topic, something deceptively simple: play. Too often, play is thought of as something that happens after the real work of the school day or the work day or the therapeutic day, but really the truth is play is the work.
Children have always learned through play, exploration, and movement. Those who study play declare it to be an essential experience, and this is especially true for children who've experienced trauma. Play isn't just joyful, it can be healing. It's how they can learn to regulate, how they can build resilience, how they can reconnect to safety and relationship. So today we're going to be talking about the science of playing, the healing and the humanity behind play, and how movement and play together become a force for growth and recovery. So let's start with a few interesting facts. More than half of the world's 2 billion children have experienced at least one form of serious trauma. That includes abuse, neglect, separation, violence, disasters, all the wars, all of those things, right? All of that. And trauma doesn't just inhabit our child's memories, it actually reshapes how a child perceives the world. It tells their nervous system, you are not safe. Seeing an increase in childhood anxiety, depression, and lack of concentration, the United Nations recently adopted a resolution to create an International Day of Play, which happens on June 11th. It started in 2024, so we're now in our second year of having that. In 2021, research on using play as therapy has shown significant improvements in behavioral challenges of children with 2 or more ACEs. It improves their empathy, their social awareness, and their self-regulation. So lots of people around the world, a variety of different sources, tell us that play is an important tool for growth and development of children socially, emotionally, and even academically. And it's an important way to heal from early adversities. In a trauma-informed environment, play helps children to rebuild their sense of safety, to practice emotional and social skills, to process their painful experiences in developmentally appropriate ways, and sometimes in very good, close therapeutic settings too, right? And to regain the sense of power that they've lost. And when we start adding the concept of movement along with play, then the benefits multiply. Because we already know about movement, right? It helps the brain and body complete the stress cycle. That's why going for a walk and, or exercising, help us mentally as well as physically, right? It helps us metabolize the cortisol, the adrenaline, and the hypervigilance that the trauma activates. Rhythmic movement, things like swinging and dancing and jumping rope and drumming, have been shown to calm the nervous system and promote regulation. And who doesn't love those things? Those are good things.
I know.
Even 20 or 30 minutes outside each day can lower your stress level dramatically. And doing it together with other people that you like or trust, well, that's co-regulation, and that's healing right there in action. So Dr. Payne Bryson, one of our favorites, has a new book entitled The Way of Play, a whole book on play, healing, and the neuroscience behind it. That's something to pay attention to, and it's so aligned with everything that we believe in here at ATN. We know parents and teachers are always looking for resources, and so we wanted to bring this one up to you on the forefront because the things that are in it are so accessible and implementable. And here's what Dr. Bryson calls play. She calls it a biological imperative meaning it's not a luxury, it's not an optional, it's a requirement. When children play, their brains begin to integrate, and linking emotional processing with problem solving and memory and executive functioning. As she says, when we prioritize play, we're not just making memories, we're actually shaping brains.
So good. Play, obviously, then, so important. And I'm just sitting here thinking, who are these people that study play? Where can I get that job? I love it.
I have a feeling that
Well,
it's worth to study play.
and I'm also thinking if it is so important, then there's bound to be barriers, right? And as a mom, I can say that I didn't always prioritize play with my children. So I get it that there are things that can be in the way. So let's look at some of what stops us from playing with our children, whether we're a parent or an educator. Common barriers. The first one, technology, right? Technology overuse for both children and adults, right?
Mhm.
Constant digital distractions are going to limit opportunities for meaningful present time connection through play. For children, screen time often replaces unstructured outdoor play and imaginative exploration. And in schools, the pressure to prioritize academics, sometimes delivered through digital platforms, reduces time for recess or play-based learning, despite its proven benefits for regulation, social skills, and cognitive development. Our world has changed, and finding a balance between using technology for the benefit of children but not overusing it, especially as a replacement for play, like games, video games, it's hard. It's really hard. Another barrier, there could be safety concerns in your neighborhood. If a neighborhood feels unsafe, then families are less likely to let children play outside, especially independently, right? If they're, and that can limit access to free, active, exploratory play that's vital for development. It is a barrier for some families. Also, another barrier could be lack of access to green space or play materials. Without safe parks, open space, or basic play materials, children will have fewer opportunities for imaginative, physical, and sensory rich play, especially in under-resourced communities. That can be a big barrier. Another barrier, and I feel this one, over-scheduled lives between school, homework, sports, structured activities. Children's days are often so packed that there's little time left for that free, unstructured play. I love if children have access to sports and after-school activities. But if they're structured, then that can take away from time for unstructured play. And really, unstructured, that piece right there is an essential part of creativity and emotional regulation. So I wanted to differentiate those two. Another barrier could be weather. If you live in an extreme heat or cold area, or just if it's inclement weather, then that's going to limit your outdoor play opportunities, especially in regions that don't have adequate indoor alternatives or climate adapted play spaces. And then finally, another barrier, adult exhaustion. When caregivers are burned out, overwhelmed, it just becomes harder to engage in play or facilitate play with children. Even with the best intentions, fatigue will limit your energy that is needed to be like fully present if you're going to have that play time, not just sitting there watching the play, but engaging in it and being playful yourselves. So I get it. All of these are very real. We are juggling work, parenting, caregiving, and our own stress. But I just think it's important that we name these challenges, right? And once we name them, then we've got a list what's in our way, and that's how we begin to shift them. So even just like a small change. I don't want us to get overwhelmed here. We can't fix everything, but what can we do? Can we replace 10 minutes of screen time with a spontaneous dance party or a walk around the block, right? Minute moments, positive, repetitive moments can make meaningful difference.
I love spontaneous dance parties.
I know you do.
It's one of my favorites. We just, in fact, I just recently shared a spontaneous dance party that took place at my house with my grandbabies.
Awesome. Awesome. Yep. Yep.
We do a lot of dancing. The other barrier for those of us raising children with trauma and attachment issues that we haven't talked about yet, that we haven't named, is that for many children with the toxic stress of their trauma and their adversities, that alone makes their play very difficult. We've talked about it before on other podcasts about how trauma can steal your joy, and joy is usually, or play is usually very joyful. And so, if you're not one to be feeling joy, you're probably not going to spontaneously have a dance party, spontaneously feel the play, right? So many of our children, my daughter was one of them, literally do not know how to play, do not know how to enjoy that whole unstructured play. So they have to be coached and taught and worked with, right? Dr. Dave Ziegler, a friend of ATN's who founded the Jasper Mountain Program for Children, explains it this way. The experience of traumatic stress can be considered the polar opposite of childlike play. Where play is imaginative, expressive, and expanding by nature, stress is restricting, protective, and confining for the individual. Play produces dopamine, a neurotransmitter associated with the sense of well-being, while traumatic stress produces hormones that put the brain and the autonomic nervous system on red alert, producing fear and sometimes even terror. So often children who are impacted by early trauma actually have to be taught how to play. It has to be modeled, it has to be coached, it has to be nurtured, and the adults have to be playful, right?
Yes. And so that I think makes this a good time to talk about how parents can use playfulness. And one of our other favorites, Dr. Dan Hughes, he's the creator of dyadic developmental psychotherapy. He teaches that a playful stance helps create safety and openness. And it's not about like cracking jokes or just avoiding or ignoring pain. It's keeping this spirit of like curiosity, delight, non-judgment while we're connecting in how we connect. So think about it. Like even in a conversation where you're asking a question, having a light tone, or just sharing a giggle when something goes wrong, like laughing about a mistake. I will never forget our coworker, Stephanie, saying that one of her kids brought home a failed test and she put it up on the fridge like a badge of honor, like, yep, you made a mistake and now we're going to learn for it and we're going to celebrate the mistakes.
Nobody died for you. Yeah. For this, like we're all okay.
Yeah, so good, right? Or like transition times. Those are also times that can be hard for kids. Making it a game, right? Singing a song, just doing something that keeps it light and moving.
Yeah.
Because our kids who have experienced trauma, they often are just on the brink of defensiveness, right? Of putting a wall up, of struggling to trust. And so playfulness, having that stance, tone, spirit of playfulness, it will reduce their defensiveness. It makes room for closeness without pressure, right? Play reduces fear. And especially for children who struggle with affection or emotional intensity, that's hard for them. Playfulness will offer that connection without it being overwhelming. You're not forcing compassion, right? You're just creating that feeling of safety. So Dr. Dan Hughes also says that when children laugh and giggle, they become less defensive and more reflective. It shifts them from that dysregulation downstairs part of the brain up to the top part of the brain where they can reflect. That's the magic. That's when learning and healing can really begin.
It's so
And
magic. Yeah.
I know I recently read an article that I thought was really applicable here and important for parents when we're talking about play. And I learned a few things that inspired me to be more intentional about playing with my kids. And my kids are older now. And so I feel like I need to be more creative or mindful because the need for play hasn't changed. They still need play no matter how old they are. And so I'm going to link this article in the show notes for everybody. It's 10 things every parent should know about play. I'm not going to read all 10 that I'll attach it in the show notes. I'm just going to give you a few takeaways that I really liked. And number one is that children learn through play. And I knew that, but the article emphasized that play can teach math, language, problem solving, and empathy. This is the homework. Play is the homework, and in a very doable, fun way, right? Homework that helps kids want to go back to school, not dread school. If they can learn in a fun way and have math be fun, right? Rather than dread it or put them in that fear stance that I'm not smart or I can't do it, then they won't be able to do it, right? That whole play and learning very deeply intertwined. So I loved that reminder. Number two, play supports physical health, which on the one hand kind of seems obvious, but I love that thinking about this domino effect of if we're playing outside, there's exposure to sunshine, fresh air, and that's going to increase your heart rate. And then you're able to breathe deeper. And, if you're moving around, incorporating that movement, then you're increasing core strength, right? And all of that actually supports emotional resilience. So I loved thinking about play doing that too. And then another point is that play reduces stress and increases joy. Again, with the stress hormones, they will build if there are chronic situations of stress, so we have to intentionally get rid of them. Play is needed every single day, just like sleep. Sleep will reset and relieve stress, and so will play. So I love that. Or excuse me, sleep, right? Sleep resets and relieves stress, and play will do that same thing. And the other thing that I pulled out from the article that really I benefited from hearing again is that you don't have to be an expert. You know how to play. You can do this, right? So this is something you need to do and can do. And really play is where children heal, grow, and I loved this part, find meaning. It helps children create a coherent narrative. And so for our kids that are pre-verbal or non-verbal, or our kids that struggle to make sense of what has happened to them if they've really had hard things, play is where they can kind of work through that. And it's a beautiful therapeutic tool that way. And I also want to say it's important that when we're talking about play, it shouldn't be used as like a reward for good behavior or just something to squeeze in if there's time, right? Needs to be a priority, needs to be intentional. Let's go back to what Dr. Tina Payne Bryson says. It's a biological need, it's a biological imperative. So just a reminder to me and all of us that it really does need to be a priority. It's that space between healing and where development grows. It regulates, it builds, it repairs, it connects. And if we're also talking about movement, which we've hit on here a few times, especially rhythmic, joyful movement, that like supercharges the healing.
So we focus a lot on how play and movement help children, and that's very important. But let's not forget that we, the adults, we also have a need for play, right? Just like the kids, we benefit from play, from laughter, from movement, from connection. And if we're the strategy in helping the children heal, and we are, and learn to thrive, then we've got to be regulated, connected, and resourced ourselves. And again, for both children and adults, play isn't a luxury. Don't think about it that way, that it's something you do. If there's time, you're going to make time for it, right? It's a biological necessity. Neuroscience tells us that play activates the prefrontal cortex, this part right up here, the area responsible for problem solving, empathy, emotional regulation. And this is why right after a night of laughter with friends or that spontaneous dance party in your kitchen, you feel more emotionally grounded. You feel more resilient. Your nervous system actually resets when you're playing, right? Literally reorganizing itself towards a more balanced feeling, right? Dr. Stuart Brown, founder of the National Institute for Play, describes play as oxygen for the brain. His research shows that adults who incorporate regular play are more creative, productive, and emotionally flexible. And who doesn't need to be those things? Creative, productive, and emotionally flexible, right?
I need it.
Let's be honest. We need them in our jobs, but we especially need them when we're parenting, if we're teaching, if we're caregiving. Got to have all that. The polyvagal theory also supports play, right? When we are engaged in safe, playful social interactions, it stimulates our ventral vagal system, the part of our nervous system that brings us into the state of calm connection and presence. Laughter, shared games, storytelling, dancing, these are not just fun. They are neurobiological tools for stress relief and for building resilience. So whether it's a girls' night out, a fantasy football league, ATN staff's favorite Jackbox games, board games, karaoke, pickleball, whatever it is that you're doing, whatever brings you joy and lets you feel like your whole self again, and that counts as healing and it counts as play, right? It helps you regulate. It counts as good therapy. It's therapeutic to do that, right? And when you're regulated, you're more prepared to be attuned, you're more patient, you're more capable of showing up in the ways that your kids need you to do that. So it's not a luxury. You need to make time for play.
Yeah.
That's our permission slip. We just gave you a permission slip to play, right? Not just to go out there and have fun, but you just tell them that Ginger and Julie say it's a must. Healing, connection, and becoming the safe, steady presence that your children or your students need. So that's a good segue to start talking about students, to talk about, the educators that are in the crowd listening. Let's now focus on how educators can incorporate play in the classroom. In trauma-sensitive classrooms, play isn't a waste of time. It's actually a really important strategy. Through playful, arts-integrated activities, like, you're not going to be surprised, dancing, singing, acting, drawing, children can build emotional regulation, creative expression, communication, and social skills, and they can have developmental readiness to go on and learn new things, learn new language, reading skills, math skills, all of those things. I think in elementary schools, play is easily incorporated through resources and games in the classroom. But in middle schools and high schools, sometimes the play incorporation is a bit more challenging, but it's not impossible. It just looks different. And we should spend some time as educators thinking about that, right? I want to point out that when teachers observe students playing, they're likely to also gain insight into ways students might be struggling, right? And also into ways that they might be shining or excelling. So just observing the student playing is a really good action as well to gain that insight.
Yeah, I love that. I love thinking about it as a way of strengthening the relationship and the connection and knowing what works for a child, knowing what they need. And I'm just thinking of something before I forget, I want to throw it out there. When we interviewed Callie Fox, who is an arts expert
Mhm.
specialist at the university level, and she sent me a copy of the BYU Arts Playbook for Educators. I'm going to attach it to our show notes
Great
as
idea.
a resource because it's so good. I just didn't want to forget that. But as we start talking and giving advice here, I know you educators, and sometimes you're like, oh no, one more thing, and I know your plates are full, right? I get that. So here's what I want you to know. We're going to give you ideas that are easy to implement, 5-minute rituals that you can add in that will also increase your capacity. If it's going to result in less referrals, less behaviors, that will give you more ability to get your content and your curriculum across rather than dealing with dysregulation in the classroom. So I want you to think about it that way too. Especially one of my favorite things to teach is rituals like brain breaks and brain games and brain intervals. They're fun, they're easy, and it's just a really easy way to like pause and connect with students, connect before content, right? And it just allows students to feel safe. It shifts their nervous system into a ready to learn state. So you want to use them because you're going to see results on test scores. You're going to see dysregulation. So actually, they're not just a break, they're a boost, a regulating brain boost. It will help students activate both hemispheres of the brain, and it will soothe their stress because students start to, when they're learning, we're learning, right? They're starting to get full, starting to feel pressure and feel stress. So if you can soothe that stress, they'll be more ready to learn. So let me give some examples. And when I'm talking about like games, I'm talking about low stakes. We're not talking about heavy competition or winners and losers. We're just talking about that playful mood. So even like a quick icebreaker, a get to know you, something that connects you, movement games, right? Where you're incorporating movement and fun at the same thing. So, like a would you rather game where there's no right or wrong answer. It's just getting them talking, getting them moving, and letting them feel like you care about them. Charades can do that too. And you can even incorporate class content and curriculum into the games like charades. Act out what we just learned, things like that. Um, or even like a group challenge, like a scavenger hunt or a team puzzle that will build collaboration. Anything you can do that reduces stress and makes them feel like they're having fun. Name that tune, right? Trivia. You can start the class that way or end the class that way to like release some of the stress that has built up. Um, you can gamify academic content, and there are so many new tools out there. I'm blown away every time I go to a school and see what teachers are doing. You're miles ahead of me when it comes to tech. Games like Kahoot, Bluekit, Quizlet, that gives you the ability to review material, but you're doing it in a playful way that's non-graded. I've even heard of teachers doing things like escape rooms or mystery solving activities that tie in the curriculum. So, an easy classroom competition where the emphasis is on fun, not on perfection, right? No right or wrong, just getting the content more spiraled in a different way. Again, creating creative expression, any way that you can bring that into the classroom and humor. Improv games, we did a podcast, it's been a little while ago, but go back and look at our podcast on improv,
Good one.
especially with teenagers.
Mhm.
Oh, wow, there have been some incredible results that way. So any drama-based activity, and Dr. Bessel van der Kolk talks a lot about that in his book too.
Mhm.
um, Art like comic strip assignments, create your own meme, music-based assignments, go back to that podcast we did with Callie. She had a lot of great suggestions for that. And then also things like community building play, circles. And when you're talking about restorative practices, circles are so important, but it could even just be like morning check-in, gathering together in a circle where you're saying what you appreciate, talking about strengths, just a simple icebreaker connection circle, cooperative games, fun team building games, human knots, all those things. There's just so many options there. And lastly, I want to talk a little bit about mindful movement and restorative play, because there's so many benefits to really bringing in restorative practices in the classroom in a way that you can do it playfully. Mindful doodling, sensory stations, yoga, stretching, breathing games. When I talk about co-regulation in the classroom, those are always top of the list, quick, easy to implement. Walk and talks, journaling, nature, grounding. I mean, I could go on and on. I just wanted to give you a few ideas of where to start. Don't get overwhelmed. Pick one.
Yeah. All of those would be so fun and such a switch up from other ways to get your academics, right? I mean, there's just so your brain is going to take notice. For those of you that are out here that are caregivers, you too don't get overwhelmed, but just start injecting some play into your daily lives. So this week, maybe you could commit to taking a fun walk after dinner. I mean, and maybe you could do silly things like rhymes or jokes or game, like something as you walk, you could do that. I'm always for silly dancing. And so you can silly dance anytime you want. I'm going to suggest that you silly dance while brushing teeth, because who wants to brush your teeth unless, of course, you are silly dancing. And then that would be the reason that you would want to do that, right? Give it a try. Might even work for teens. I don't know. That report back. Letting your child take the lead in the next game that you play. Let them lead, including let them give you the instructions. Maybe that would be fun, right? Let them be in charge.
Yeah. Right. And again, if you're an educator, try something as simple as a brain break or a brain game before giving content, or an opening circle, that has a moment filled with laughter. Let one of the students tell you their joke of the day, kind of a thing. Mm-hmm. And then just kind of sit back and watch for the results. Create space for play, right? It's not just about helping the children, it's healing ourselves alongside with them, doing it together.
Exactly. And if you're a human being and you don't know when your next dose of play is coming from, turn this podcast off and go make an appointment to play with somebody, whatever that feels like, whatever's fun for you. Make that plan now, because if you can't think about you're not clear on when that next playtime is coming for you personally, then you're not doing your job of figuring out how to get that play in your life.
Yeah, so good.
Go out there and have a good time, y'all. We'll see you next time.
And that's a wrap for today's episode of Regulated and Relational. In our next episode, Julie and Ginger discuss relational health and resilience with Dr. Stan Sanu. A special thanks to Joe Kramer for donating the music. To learn more about the Attachment and Trauma Network, visit us at www.attachtrauma.org. I'm Lauren Cassis, and as always, thank you for listening.